Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Introducing your hosts, Kids at Heart.
We're back, baby.
This was probably the first ever time that we actually started a show on time.
Totally.
And the reason being is we got a big action-packed show, and we know that you want to watch SmackDown, our trusty viewers. So we're going to cram, well, not cram, but we're going to have 5 spots instead of 3 like we usually do. So thank you if you're joining us for watching this episode of Wrestle Reel. 5 spots. And Chris Anthony Lopez, sorry we were not on live last week. We had this brilliant idea to record the show in a special way, and let's just say it. But no, we're back here today with 5 spots of Wrestle Reel. As you could tell, I am absolutely thrilled to be here because I feel like I haven't been able to talk wrestling with you in like a month, even though it's been a week, and we talked about it for like 10 hours last week.
15. It was 15 hours.
And that said, we were not alone. And joining us again this week for Wrestle Reel is Mr.
Jacob Pickett.
Hello,
Jacob.
Thank you for being our first guest on the first Wrestle Reel Super Show.
Oh boy,
it wouldn't be Wrestle Reel though if we didn't ask our esteemed guest this time. Have you watched any wrestling this week? Other than the main shows, obviously.
Obviously we watched, the last main thing was when we all watched WrestleMania. But outside of that, it's been a lot of random stuff, and then obviously paying attention to stuff to talk about here. But I think the most I've enjoyed is probably the random stuff I've just seen on Twitter of old stuff that I've sent to Chris mainly. But yeah, I've seen a lot of random dumb stuff, but I am planning once this school semester's over, I have a huge backlog of stuff that I want to go back and watch. So that's my plan right now.
Yeah, I there's so much wrestling that I feel like I need to end up catching up on by the time that things are over. But I mean, which is why like every single week it feels like we have this segment where we talk about what wrestling we've watched. And I completely forgot to watch wrestling this week.
Actually, I'm forgetting something. Hold on. I'm sorry. Wait.
Chris Trash Bagthany Lopez? I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost decided to wear a trash bag to the episode this week. Now, granted, we have our segment we call the high spot, and we are definitely. I know exactly what we're gonna be talking about there because. What a disaster this week was for professional wrestling fans to see what we saw. I am trying to obviously stall here.
Okay, there it is. All right.
Glasses.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Chris will only get this joke, but Chris, I like your little track jacket thing. You're looking very supreme, like raised liver and onions today.
Right.
But how can
I really will be the only person that gets that joke.
Yes, unless Lou's watching. But no, seriously, we're back here. We're here for what will be just a lot more content. I can see time-wise us just kind of flying through a few things, but I will acknowledge Chris's name later on in the show. I know a collective high spot will have happened. But that said, our high spot definitely leads into our segment number 1, where we unfortunately have to talk about another round of Black Wednesday.
Black Wednesday is so unfortunate. Like, I really hate the idea that we have a name for it too. Like, so for those who don't know, last Wednesday, the Wednesday after WrestleMania, WWE did this mass release of their talent, right? Like, and I will never understand the idea of doing it after, say, I don't know, like a big show, but in this case it was WrestleMania. So just to run down a few of the names that got cut: Samoa Joe, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, both the Iconics are gone. Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucky baby, our favorite wrestler.
My favorite
Kalisto.
wrestler of all time, Tucker.
Yeah, Tucker Godwin, 100%. Kalisto, Wesley Blake, Bo Dallas, Mojo Rawley, and that was just the releases that came out over Black Wednesday. And we will discuss the treatment of those releases later. We'll save that for the high spot portion. So we'll acknowledge my name, like what Nick said, way later in the show. But our guest Jacob, I'm gonna start with you. Upon seeing all those names, right, and upon hearing of another Black Wednesday, this came out of nowhere. Like, what was your 2 cents on it? What did you think of the whole releases of Joe, the Iconics, Mickey James, Chelsea, etc.?
Well, I didn't realize it was happening, but I think right after the first couple of tweets that I think the first 2 specified were like Samoa Joe and Billy Kay, and you sent me a picture of the tweet. You texted to me, and I was immediately like, "Nah, this isn't real. Like I'm being pranked right now." So of course, I immediately went on Twitter to check it, and I was just like, "Wow, that is unbelievable." And then of course, by the time I checked, a slew of other names had come out, and I was just like, unbelievable. WrestleMania was like 3 days ago, and one of the people released was on the show in a match, and another person commentated half of both days, like, and then some of them that were released were because of like past things that they had going well for them before. The reason that those things were cut is because they said they were going to push them, and then they weren't even on Mania, and then they got dropped. It was a whole mess. And then I got a message from Landon. Actually, he was just like, just as surprised as I was. And then I sent him back a video of me very loudly yelling about how dumb it was. So yeah, that all happened within like 5 minutes.
Nick, brother, what did you think of the releases? What was your first reaction to seeing Samoa Joe get cut?
I'll flash back to it was like an entire. I don't know if you guys have seen the giraffe sketch from Robot Chicken where it gets stuck in the quicksand. I kind of felt that way with my prediction with Samoa Joe.
That was a hell of a reference, Nick.
He was going to come out and he was going to challenge Roman Reigns. So at first, I'll run you through the stages of grief that I was going through. At first, I'm going, oh my gosh, Samoa Joe's off the Raw commentary team. Oh my gosh, Samoa Joe did not appear on Raw. That is amazing. Oh my gosh, Roman Reigns is starting off SmackDown. Cesaro. Oh, okay. Well, that was weird. Well, maybe Samoa Joe will be on Raw. Released. What? I went from thinking that I was a WWE writer for a few seconds to suddenly, I had no clue what was going on. And yes, Justin, agreed. Sad to see Samoa Joe gone from the WWE. It really does suck. And what sucks even more, in my opinion, is the Iconics being released because Billy Kay was on fire. Peyton Royce releases this incredible promo, and it's all for nothing at this point. Jacob, your point about Billy Kay being on WrestleMania is something that was basically just taken right out of my mouth. It makes no sense whatsoever. Billy Kay, I have a feeling that the WWE really does have a serious issue with people getting themselves over. It is a problem. Here's the thing. Tucker, even Mickey James, we'll get to that later. I'm surprised it wasn't Jackson Riker, considering his backstage politics. But like, it's just, to me, there was a certain. This always happens. We were clamoring for them to do something with Bo Dallas, and they never were going to do it. So I get it. But the big issue that I have is they almost inadvertently teased something was going to happen with Samoa Joe. And then there's Royce and Kay. I'm not surprised that Chelsea Green got released. I think that she was probably asking for it for a while. It seems as though Tucker wanted it like crazy by the way that he was talking about it. But tangent over. I thought Samoa Joe was going to lead to something, and then he didn't. But I am definitely disappointed in the way that things went down.
What the hell, man? What the hell? Like, honestly, 3 days after WrestleMania, we couldn't go 3 days and a year to the day of the last one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe that the same day was Black Wednesday, back-to-back years. That's tone deaf, that's ignorant, and I mean, that's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. So that's okay. That's out of the way. Look at the talent they let go. Samoa Joe. Nick, I wanted your theory to happen so bad. So bad.
Felt like it was about to.
I was convinced the second Adnan Virk got announced to be the new play-by-play guy on Raw, which happened the day of, mind you, the day of Raw that Monday. It's like, oh yeah, Michael or Tom Phillips off Raw, even though he was pretty good on Raw. Justin Cole in the chat. Chelsea Green is probably doing what's best for her. Matt Cardona.
Agreed.
That's. I think y'all are giving her too much say. I think she just got released. Like,
Well,
I think all these folks got released.
I think that she kind of wanted it, though, either way. Although, again, you never know. She was hurt a lot in the WWE. So, again, it wasn't necessarily one that I was like, oh, my gosh, Chelsea Green got released.
Her SmackDown
There was
debut?
a big 3 out of this.
Totally. Like, so her SmackDown debut, Chelsea Green's, she got hurt. Her Raw debut, she got hurt. Like, it's just unfortunate. And I think Chelsea Green would have been better off. I don't know why they tried to bring her up so soon. I think NXT would have been fine. But now she's not there anymore. She's just going to go back to being super over on the Indies or at Impact or something, where she made the name for herself that she was before she went to NXT. So I think she'll be fine. But like the talent that they let go, like folks like Kalisto that came out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere. What's his name? Wesley Blake. What the hell? Okay, sure. Tucker. Apparently he'd been. I still don't understand the idea of splitting up Heavy Machinery just so you can make Otis a super over babyface. He doesn't get over in front of your own produced crowd. It's an artificial crowd, and he couldn't get over, at least super over. They had to take the briefcase off of Otis, and then you turn him heel a couple months later. Tucker's already heel. Tucker turned heel. Why not just put them back together? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Of course, there's the obvious of the Iconics and Joe. They're all going to wrestle again somewhere. I firmly believe Samoa Joe will wrestle again. Where? I know a few buddies of mine have said that Joe's going to go home. Ring of Honor is a piece of shit right now. Like there's no, I see no appeal. And people
don't not Impact though.
Well, it's kind of Impact and ROH. I would say can both be home for Samoa Joe because he was like super over at ROH to begin with, and then TNA, and then he went back to ROH for a second, then went to WWE. But he was in there like he was super big either way. But when it comes to that, ROH they're kind of getting better. They dropped a lot of the awful people, but then I think they're still not quite up to snuff, but they're definitely better than like a year ago. But yeah, I don't know, because of that whole thing, I don't know if he would go back there, at least right now.
Right, and Impact, I think we say this on the show all the time that Tony Khan's going to buy Impact. I think it's a matter of time.
Oh God,
and
I agree. It's
like the stuff. I firmly think both Iconics will pop up on All Elite Wrestling. I do think so. Like, I know there's obviously the obvious ties with Peyton Royce and Shawn Spears. And Shawn Spears obviously part of the Pinnacle right now, having this great storyline on AEW television. Yeah. And then might as well take Billie Kay with her, or whatever her new ring name's going to be. Both of these women, right? So,
well,
like
Peyton
the Mojo Rawley
already going by her like Cassie Lee on YouTube and stuff like that.
Then there
so
you
that's
go.
going to be her name,
right? Then that's probably what it's going to be. And like Mojo Rawley, my man hasn't been on TV in a year.
Yeah.
Since Gronkowski was a thing. Like, that was really the one. Bo Dallas, like, what a squandered and missed opportunity to not put him with his brother doing Fiend stuff. That's
and Bo Dallas.
Man.
Yeah, Bo Dallas hadn't. His last match period was in 2019, and I believe it was a house show.
And that's sad
Right.
as hell. That is so
Insane.
Back when
sad.
house
bro.
shows were a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and how the future of house shows, like that's a whole different count for a whole different wrestle reel, like the future of what house shows can be. But these releases, they came out of absolutely nowhere. I want to say Billy Kay was the one that started it, and I was just like, whoa, like Billy Kay just wrestled a couple days ago, and then it was Mickey James. I'm like, whoa, she did commentary for NXT Takeover. I'm like, so like what the hell? That was a week ago. And then obviously Royce and Joe and everybody else panned out. I'm like, yo, this is insane. And there's just so many question marks. WWE said on that Monday when Adnan Virk got on play-by-play, Samoa Joe's a part of the roster. 2 days later, he gets dropped. He got released.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And to think, it's crazy that I'm about to say this because our next segment, I feel like every single segment that we have plays into each other in some way, shape, or form today.
Good. We love a good narrative.
Because let's continue the narrative as we talk about the Wednesday Night War, because this is a big point. Do these release superstars end up bringing more viewers to wherever they end up going, which is probably going to be All Elite Wrestling?
I mean, yeah. Look, so it's no secret. It's no secret that All Elite Wrestling is the place to be right now. Yeah. Like whether you like them or not, whether you think they're too smarky, like how I do, or whether you think that that the roster's blown up, which it is. They have three shows. AEW Dark Evolution, AEW Dark Proper, and then All Elite AEW Dynamite on Wednesdays. They have 3 wrestling shows. The first 2 that get at least 200,000 views on YouTube each show. So people are watching that stuff. That's higher numbers than Impact, and Impact's on television. Think about that for a second. So like AEW is the place to be right now, but the question at the bottom of the screen is who's going to benefit more from the Wednesday Night Wars not being a thing? Because last week, if we would have had a show, we would have discussed this, but we've gotten all this information since then, like AEW cracking 1 million twice in the viewers, and NXT probably for the better, having just significantly better shows than what they were doing before. So I have to ask you, Nick, we'll start with you, brother. Like, who benefits more from there being no more Wednesday Night War, AEW or NXT?
Well, it's got to be AEW. Though I will agree that NXT has had a couple of better shows. Though I don't know what the actual hell they're doing with Kyle O'Reilly right now. It's just strange. I mean, here's what I'm going to say about that is WWE, you got to really make a decision on what you want Kyle O'Reilly to be at this point. Because if you're going to make him lose to Karrion Kross again, that's like his 18th time losing the NXT champion. That said, I think that these major releases are going to play into AEW's success because the Iconics are going to make their debut there. I think that here's the thing. I think that with the eventual merger of it happening, that actually plays. With the eventual proposed merger in my head, that I think is going to happen. I think that the Knockouts championships are going to be an Impact. Now, that said, does that lead those two to there? I don't know. But if I don't get a segment where MJF is standing there backstage and out of nowhere Samoa Joe just pushes him to the side, I'm going to be pretty pissed. Because it happened and it's a beautiful moment. I think that Samoa Joe is going to be the biggest player in who is more successful. Because I think when Samoa Joe eventually makes his debut in either AEW or wherever it is, that's going to help boost AEW's viewership. I think Samoa Joe will eventually go to I think he'll eventually go to AEW. And I'm not saying that that's going to obviously put them over the WWE. But I think a person like Samoa Joe, who was not treated right in the WWE in the slightest because they apparently didn't have anything for him, even though the clip of him arguing with Brock Lesnar keeps popping up on my feed, and I'm going, I just want more of it. I think that eventually AEW is going to outpace NXT in the long run. I'm talking just maybe 500,000 more viewers, but that's a big deal.
Look, and before I jump in, Nick, your mic trails off. It's trailing off at the end when you talk, bro.
That's
But but no, this whole Wednesday night. First of all, again, I will echo this from the rooftops. There was never a war. Never. Just because both shows are on the same night does not mean there was a war. And let's be honest, AEW won, I don't know, 99% of the weeks. NXT, I think, won twice in the ratings since AEW showed up. So let's keep that in mind. There's no war. Second off, of course, AEW is going to be the one that benefits from this the most. 100%. Like, I think NXT, I don't want to say NXT has peaked. I don't want to say that. For lack of a better word, NXT, just because I think their ceiling is lower than the main rosters because they are still viewed as the developmental. They're still viewed as the first step in your WWE career. Like that's a load of garbage. I'll be real. NXT has the best wrestlers on the brand or under the company. They have some of the best talent overall. They have the better shows every week. Let's be honest. And NXT, it just NXT will be fine. Moving to Tuesdays will highly benefit them, 100%. But now it's time for AEW to become the show it's always wanted to be and always destined to be. Because look at it. They broke 1 million twice in the first 2 weeks since NXT's moved. Granted, that just means more NXT fans that were watching the product prior now have the time to watch Dynamite. Great. That's what that means. Fantastic. I guarantee, Jacob, when we were watching Dynamite NXT during its initial run, we would have greatly benefited from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday wrestling. 100%.
More than likely, yeah.
Instead of Monday, twice on Wednesday, wherever the hell Impact was, and Friday. So them having wrestling every week benefits all parties. AEW now can jump into the forefront. I predicted this yesterday. I don't know how I feel about my prediction, but I'm going to rock with it anyway, so I'll say it here. I think we will see the day, maybe by the end of this year, maybe by the end of the summer, if we're gonna bet on it, AEW will eclipse Monday Night Raw in the ratings at one point or another over the course of this year.
Oh wow!
At the way that Raw is going compared to AEW, I think Dynamite will eclipse Raw. I'm not saying that.
Sorry.
Look, that could have been a high spot, but I will say it here because it fits the conversation.
No, it's
Dynamite has no more competition on Wednesdays. They will be all these wrestlers that we talk about. Like we all love Luchasaurus, we all love MJF, we all love Hangman Page, we all love who the hell else? Phoenix and the Bucks and Cody and Pentagon and Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, all these folks, right? We love all these folks. They can now become household names because they're not just a brand competing with WWE.
Right.
I also said a couple weeks ago that I think Kenny Omega can become a household name. I think the name, and Justin, I see your comment in the chat about Jericho. I say that I don't say Jericho because I think he's already a household name. People know who that is.
Yes.
But folks like Kenny, Cody, the Bucks, not really Cody, but the Bucks and everybody else I just mentioned who made their name wrestling for the Independent Wrestling Federation or the backyard wrestling school of Rock. Like that's what you know what I'm talking about. Like all these indie feds where all these guys made their names from. That's where they're known, and that's how we know them. Like, but in like the threshold, they're not known for their work on TNT.
No,
like that's not what it is. But not yet. And I'm pretty sure that at the rate AEW is going, it's nothing but up, dude. I think people are crazy as hell if they think 1 million or 1.3 million is their peak. Like that is insane. That is absolutely insane.
It's
at the rate Raw is going, they're going down down. Some of the worst numbers in their entire run. The longest running episodic television show in history is facing some of the lowest numbers ever. Granted, some shows would kill for 1.3 million viewers, 1.5 million viewers. Some shows would kill for that.
Yes.
Not wrestling, though. Especially if AEW is there alone on Wednesdays. This benefits AEW significantly more because now they have no competition. 1,000%. Jacob, brother, who do you think benefits more?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely AEW because I mean, if you think back to it, like AEW goes from non-existing to existing, and then within a few months later, they announced that they have a TV show. It's on TNT, like WCW used to be. All the comparisons already started up there, and then very obvious, like they probably won't say this is the case, but very obviously in response to that, WWE's like, all right, NXT, it's live now. No more pre-taped, and it's going to go on 2 weeks before they do. I mean, who are they? I don't know. This is obviously a completely separate decision when it obviously wasn't. So they were already like trying to take away from them. Like people say like, oh, WWE doesn't have to worry about them. They've got 3 shows that are on TV, like 5 or 6 in general overall. And you're like, oh, they're not actually scared of them, like, all that stuff. But it's like, I don't think they would have done that if they weren't actually concerned about another wrestling show being popular on TV and possibly taking viewers away from them. So exactly. So now they've finally stopped doing that, which I will, cherish the Wednesday Night War, at least the first like major part of it for a while, because that was Chris and I hanging out every week for like a year, basically, watching 2 wrestling shows on our computers at the same time. And sometimes it was great and sometimes it wasn't, but it was an experience nonetheless. But yeah, AEW can absolutely, like, they don't have to do things to try to compete. They can, which they already kind of started, I would think, having these people who like aren't household names who weren't known in like WWE or whatever. Like they're sort of moving in a way where they're not the only like top people. Like they're already starting to have some more people that, whether they got famous because they've been in AEW or they were famous elsewhere, but not to like the general masses, they're starting to elevate them. And now they absolutely can do that even better, because it's not going to be like, oh, we have to have Jericho on screen more so that people watching NXT will switch over. They don't have to do anything like that anymore. They can do whatever they want. And they kind of have been from the beginning, but now they really are free, because this is, the past 2 weeks are the first time since they've existed with the show that they're completely unopposed to stuff. And they're already doing better for it.
Mm-hmm. And like NXT, I would argue right now, I think that the AEW superstars are bigger than the NXT superstars. I mean, clearly you have Finn Balor, you have Adam Cole, but who knows if we're going to keep having Adam Cole there. Don't the only real big names from there, I mean, Karrion Kross, I think, has shoes to fill that are lower than a lot of who is in AEW right now. And he's their world champion. Gargano and Ciampa are your biggest guys. Finn Balor, obviously, is Finn Balor. Finn Balor is the Chris Jericho of NXT. As in, he's somebody we know that they brought down to help elevate everybody else.
They did that on the first show that was against AEW.
Right.
Chris and I, because Chris and I were originally just going to switch between like sources on a TV to watch both. And within less like 12 minutes exactly, both matches on the first matches on the shows ended, and we saw like, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, who's Adam Cole talking to? And then the camera pans over on the computer screen with no audio. It shows Finn Balor, and we start losing our minds, and then quickly switch to TV. And then when we look at the other one, we're like, oh, Jericho's there. He's kicking Cody's ass. Oh, and so then we were like, no TV. We're watching it on small computers next to each other. But yeah, all that, like, they brought him back like immediately then. So you're exactly right with it being like the Jericho equal, because it all happened literally at the same time on both of the first shows that went against each other.
The NXT comparison between Balor and Jericho, I think, is perfectly valid. The unfortunate part is that Finn Balor isn't Chris Jericho. No. I think that's why AEW had the leg up. And it was fresh. It was new. The first match was Cody Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara. And then I remember vividly watching the duel laptop screens. I'm like, who the hell's Sammy Guevara? And I didn't know how to say his name for months. And Jacob was like, yeah, man, he does like a panda head gimmick and he like does vlogs. I'm like, oh, so he's the worst. Oh, okay, cool.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, you know. But now I love Sammy Guevara, right? And I have all this exposure to. That's why I love Orange Cassidy. I love Luchasaurus. I love Jungle Boy. I had no idea. I didn't know Luke Perry's son wrestled. Like I didn't know that.
Luchasaurus, though. We love
Luchasaurus. We stand Luchasaurus in his household 100%. We love Luchasaurus. But like I think that's what AEW has another leg up. Like I think their names will become more household because when you think of WWE, you think of Raw, SmackDown, and then NXT. AEW, what do you think of? AEW Dynamite. That's it. Well, until they have a second brand with a whole separate roster, then we can start whining and complaining. But I mean, you can sort of see that with Dynamite and Evolution. But at the same time, there's a lot of crossover talent. Like Cody Rhodes or Kenny Omega's out here wrestling on Elevation on YouTube. Like you don't see Roman Reigns wrestling on free matches.
Never a single damn
main event. Yeah.
Right. Like the second Roman Reigns wrestles on main event, and then we can talk again.
God. On main event. I remember main event
he doesn't wrestle on SmackDown, let alone main event. Keep that in mind too.
Let's think about it this way though. Kenny Omega's been wrestling on AEW's B show for the longest time. And that's Impact Wrestling. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I had to do that.
That's a good
one. Let
one.
me take this helm, Chris Anthony Lopez, because I want to talk a little bit about AEW's B show, Impact Wrestling. I love Impact Wrestling. And I was so excited when I saw that Kenny Omega, also half an hour long wrestle reel. Whoops.
Yeah, we're flying through this. We can cool it. We can pump the brakes. Let's slow down. We can talk about AEW's B show, but let's pump the brakes.
I am excited. Well, I've been excited to talk about this all week because I remember when I saw that Rich Swann, another WWE misused talent.
Yeah.
We like to call them misused talent, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Was going to be wrestling Kenny Omega. I thought it was pretty interesting, but Mamma Mia! Mauro Ranallo is going to be calling the match. Now, we have a lot to talk about with this segment. Is it bad that Kenny Omega is going to eventually be Impact World Champion? I don't think so. But them grabbing Mauro Ranallo was insane. I was afraid they were going to be like, JBL's also announcing it too. I'd be like,
oh no.
Oh, man.
But no, I am so excited for Mauro to be calling this show, or calling this match, I guess. I want to see him involved more in wrestling. You know, I love the voice of Mauro Ranallo. I remember Chris and I are talking about my favorite. I was talking about it as somebody. My favorite Mauro Ranallo segment is when he was announcing, and then out of nowhere, a wrestler comes flying at him, and he's like, "Ah, ah!" It's so funny. But to see Mauro appearing on Impact Wrestling is going to be insane. So I leave it up to you two gents. What do you guys think of this whole entire show? Because there's a lot going on. You have. First of all, I didn't know that Juice Robinson was the Impact Tag Team Champion.
Finn Juice.
Mm-hmm. Finn Juice.
And I would like to propose one thing to add a little bit to this segment, since obviously we're kind of just moving right along. Do you think it benefits Peyton Royce, or the Iconics we'll call them, because they're not going by that anymore, to appear on Impact as opposed to AEW because they have the Knockouts Tag Team Champion?
Before Jacob, I'll let you go first on this, but let's also keep in mind that everybody that got released is under a 90-day no compete.
Yes,
so let's have to wait till July. Mm-hmm. But that's a good point to bring up. So I mean, Jacob, by all means, what do you think of the whole show with Rebellion and everything around it?
Yeah, when we were talking about the Iconics being released earlier, and then talking about where they'd go, and people obviously, because what's funny is that before AEW, was a thing. Whenever somebody got released from WWE, they're just like, they'll probably go to Impact because for years, TNA before it was called Impact, and even still, people are like, oh, it's where the WWE refugees or misused talent, as we're saying now,
refugees,
as where they're gonna go. But now AEW has become that, which is why it's even funnier. It's just like, oh yeah, Impact's just the B show for AEW because they've both been considered the same things. But when it comes to the Iconics, I can definitely see them going to AEW because, Peyton Royce is married to Sean Spears, so it makes sense because then they be together more, and that's something WWE likes to not do a lot of times. They like to split couples up for whatever random dumb reason. But between that and then them working with Impact, it could just be because they're with one, the other, because the Iconics are over.
Right.
They always have been. Wherever they go, they're going to get attention and people are going to enjoy them. But especially on Impact, they have women's tag team titles. And while they won the WWE ones and everybody lost their minds, I remember I missed the match because I went to get food. But I came back when we were watching WrestleMania, and I walked in. The first thing I saw was them holding the belts. I started popping off. It was great. And then they proceeded to defend the belts like twice, and then barely showed up for 3 months. And then they dropped them, and then it just nothing ever happened again. So for them to actually, yeah, for real. But for them, I think them showing up at Impact in some way, since they brought back the Knockouts Tag Team Championships, because say what you will about TNA over the years, but if there's one thing that they've nailed way sooner than basically everybody else, it was a good women's division and a good women's tag team division.
Facts, baby.
They are the only ones that have succeeded at both and both at the same time. On top of that,
facts.
So they would absolutely kill it, even if they don't win it. Just being in a program and anybody, because like everything they have going on right now, is pretty good. Like just I believe yesterday, because Impact's back on Thursdays again. Because I believe, Jordan Grace was teamed with Jazz, and I believe Jazz finally actually retired on Impact. Yes. And then they brought in, so Jazz is like, don't worry, I got your back. And now Rachel Ellering is back. I haven't seen her in forever, probably since like she got dropped by WWE, God knows how long ago.
Jesus,
that's another one along those lines. But then she showed up yesterday, so I believe that's who's fighting for the titles. Yeah. So Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz are defending against Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering. If in like 3 months, like whatever feud they're doing at the time, or like if like one just ends in the Iconics show up, that's money TV, and you absolutely will get me watching Impact because I want to keep watching Impact again. But in the perfect world, I'd watch like basically every wrestling show when it comes out. But as of now, it's not really a reality. And then sometimes companies like to have people that are not really good humans and that I don't really want to watch. And sometimes Impact over the years has been kind of a proponent of that. But this card overall,
Austin Aries.
Yikes.
He's one of them.
Yeah. But like the rest of the stuff here, like the whole thing they're doing with the stable of Violent by Design, where Eric Young just keeps recruiting people who like hurting people. And they're creating this whole group. Like the fact that they have Joe Doring, who before this, all I knew is that he was basically in All Japan all the time as one of like the few foreign people that they had there. All of a sudden, he's not there. I didn't even realize it. And then he's in Impact. Like Impact has been doing some crazy stuff. Like in between some of the less than desirables showing up on TV, they are still doing all this cool stuff. And yeah, everything heavy. Like even like the top 3 matches that have been really hyping up, like a title for title match. Who knows if it's even like, are we convinced that Kenny's probably going to win? And will that, and probably because probably anything that Tony Khan and AEW says they want to happen, it will probably happen. But also, it's going to bring in viewers for Impact too, so it's a win-win for them. So I don't blame them for probably going along with basically everything, even though they buried Impact on Dynamite and on Impact like a million times already. At this point.
And they still do.
Yeah, and they still do. They blamed them for the exploding ring incidents immediately, and then now they're never going to talk about it again. Like stuff like that. But then you have FinJuice, which is still crazy because like everybody's been talking about like, oh, what if AEW and New Japan did stuff together? And it's like it's kind of iffy because like everybody at the time New Japan was super high on the elites and everything, But then they realized that they were kind of pushing them too hard because then all of them up and left. Kenny was like basically begging to be IWGP World Champion, and then they finally gave it to him. It was like the first time in forever they had put that much, stuff into a foreign non-Japanese wrestler, especially as a top guy. And then he dropped it in his first defense in a month and then was never seen again, And so like that's kind of obviously been a sour spot because then there was a whole bunch of gaps. And, they had Kenny Omega win it in a fantastic match and everything. And then it's just like, oh, they put it on Hiroshi Tanahashi. Oh, now it's on Jay White. Oh, now Okada has it again. And then, a whole other slew of things happen. But the fact that, I was amazed when they said that Finn Juice were showing up at Impact because the last time they had done any sort of thing with New Japan was like 2 or 3 years ago for like a match. And I think Taiji Ishimori showed up and that was it. And then on top of that, they win the tag belts. Like, it's just bonkers. So the fact that there's a team from New Japan and that they're always labeled when they show up with New Japan's logo. Like, it's not that they are signed to Impact. They are lended over from New Japan. Like, that's legit. And, they win the tag belts. And I'm kind of thinking they're probably going to lose them back. That was just a whole, the whole Forbidden Door thing showed up around the same time. So that was honestly just lucky timing with all that. Because everybody's just like, anybody can show up anywhere, no matter whose contract you signed. Like,
well,
it's a whole thing.
Do you think that had anything to do with like Kenta showing up on AEW though?
Maybe that could have been as well.
That Tony Khan's pulling all the strings here to make something happen.
Something happened with that to where they had to drop the story because that was so weird having Kenta pop up like once or twice and then
it made sense because John Moxley was still with the whole US title thing, but it's also crazy because then Moxley didn't drop the belt like we all thought he would.
Right.
But now I guess he's just they're probably just going to do it because they like pre-tape a lot of the New Japan USA strong stuff anyway. That's probably why they did it because he can kind of do that. Maybe he doesn't show up for matches, but at least he has some interviews or some promos or whatever. But yeah, like with that whole thing, that was just leading up to like because he was basically having a feud. There was one side of feud where Kenta's like the champ doesn't even exist. Just giving the belt. Why am I even here? He's like, I defended this briefcase more than he's defended a title in a year, which is true. But yeah, like with all this stuff, like the fact that's Impact of all places, when you think about it, is having 2 New Japan wrestlers that are champions, not in New Japan, but at Impact. And then the match probably right after that is the AEW World Champion in a title match with the Impact World Champion. And they're all there on the same show. Like, it's crazy. And that's bringing, more eyes and stuff to Impact because they're the place. They're the center here because people are like, oh yeah, AEW should absolutely, team up with New Japan, especially when, ROH was starting to be revealed more and more as just being just the worst. Then people are just like, and I was one of the people, I was just like, drop ROH. You don't even have to pick up somebody else. It could be Impact for all I care. Just like if you want someplace in the US to like have some people hang out or whatever, get anyone else. Get Impact, get AEW, whatever. But then that's obviously like there's those rumors that they wanted to do AEW wanted to do stuff in New Japan, and then it was like and it was like absolutely not. But then there's been so many things. There's so many people that are in New Japan that were connected with AEW stuff. I think Chris Jericho, if I remember correctly, Chris Jericho had a AEW title defense at a New Japan show at one point against Tanahashi. I'm pretty sure that happened. Yeah. So like things were cool, kind of, but like now they're not. But now like they're kind of close in proximity now. Everything's a whole thing, and that's another reason why this show is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I hope I can watch as much as I can because then even outside of all that outside stuff, the women's title match of Deonna Purrazzo defending against Tennille Dashwood. I have been
the title.
I have been a mark for Emma/Tennille Dashwood for years. When she got released off WWE, like a day or two after she fought Asuka on TV, I was so upset. And to see her pop up in like ROH and Impact, well, she was in ROH, and then their women's division was garbage, so then she left. And then her showing up at Impact was great. Then she had to leave for some medical stuff for a while, and then she finally came back, and she's finally getting what she deserves. She's getting this high-profile feud for the title. And God, I hope she wins so bad. She has won like nothing in years, and I want her to have something.
I saw her wrestle Brit Baker actually And
Oh, right on.
it is just talk about two women's wrestlers that I absolutely adore.
Mhm.
And I think that Britt Baker's on her way to something in it.
Absolutely.
AEW. So she's literally just doing nothing but being the bragging heel in AEW right now, even though she did lose the match.
Right.
Love her. But it's just like I want Tenille to win that title very badly because what's her name has had the title for a very long time.
Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think it's about time that you move it on to somebody who deserves it. You know what I mean?
No, and the whole, I think Deonna, another WWE release, Deonna Purrazzo.
And she wasn't even there that long either, which is crazy.
Right. So, like, yeah, when you look at the Rebellion card, there's a lot of former WWE talent, but that just goes to show why, to go back to Count One for a second, how they just release folks and then they pop back up, for the better, somewhere else. So this card is insane. Rich Swann found a whole different name for himself. He did the "Can You Handle This?" He did that, and it was great. And then they released him, and they were like, "Oh!" But now he's facing Kenny Omega for both titles.
Yeah.
Seeing Finn Juice is dope. They're probably going to lose the belts to the Good Brothers because all the belts are going to be with the new Elite. Deonna Purrazzo has been champ for a very long time now, but I mean, good on her. Tenille Dashwood. Sure. Like that match is gonna freaking rule. And if Tenille wins, great. If Deonna retains, great. I'm glad that Jacob brought up the point of Impact having a significantly better women's division for a while before WWE is like, wait a minute, women can wrestle,
right?
And like it was this whole thing, right?
Oh yeah, I said early on in us doing this show that like Impact has the best women's division in wrestling right now.
Yeah, and they still do today. Like there's there was a lull like some years, but especially now, like they're absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I don't think I can agree with that, but I see where you're coming from. I totally see where you're coming from. It's validated.
WWE has a great women's division right now as well. Unless you're saying
NXT to be exact. Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. I'm way more invested in this than I should be for someone who doesn't watch Impact every week.
Yes.
Like I'm a major mark, like it's nobody's business, and just seeing them do like Brian Myers who doing the eye patch gimmick. I'm like, are you kidding me, bro? How's Impact gonna do a better eye patch gimmick than WWE with they gave Rey Mysterio one eye and they didn't do shit with that.
With Aleister Black has an eye patch, which by the way it did not get released. It is being repackaged now apparently.
I don't know why they should put him with the Fiend. Put him with the mother trucking Fiend.
She's literally sitting there like this.
She's literally Satan. Yeah, she's literally Satan.
She was literally being Aleister Black. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
No, but this whole card is going to be really damn dope. And I love that Mauro Ranallo is coming back to call one match.
Remember,
one match only.
Like, I completely forgot that was even what we started.
That was the crux, but then it just turned into Impact Rebellion, which by all means is really a great show.
By the way, Impact. Yes, this is the Wrestle Real Super Show.
Let's talk Impact. Why not? We never talk Impact on this show.
Impact being great is a freaking amazing thing. It's
good for wrestling. It's good for wrestling as a whole.
Brilliant. Just Impact being good makes me so goddamn happy.
Right.
I grew up needing to watch Impact because that was what I could watch whenever I could find it. And to see it like come back strong just makes me very happy.
Yeah, like
I remember those. Go ahead, Jacob.
I hadn't watched like anything of TNA. All I had heard was
Impact.
Well, I'm talking like back when I first started. I didn't start watching wrestling until like 2016, and I was only watching WWE because that was like the biggest stuff, so that's all I knew. But then later on, and the only thing I'd heard from TNA was like stuff online, and people make like all the lol TNA moments, over the years, all the dumb stuff they'd done, all that. I found a whole list of it and just laughed at all the dumb and awful stuff that they had done over the years. So all I knew was the negative stuff because that's what most people didn't care about, anything that wasn't WWE focused on. Then all the broken Matt Hardy stuff happened, and I was like, this is so hilarious. I was like, this looks so dumb and hilarious that I need to watch this. That ended up being one of the best shows I've seen live on TV ever, and still is to this day. And then I became the biggest Matt Hardy fan in the world, and still am.
So good.
All because of that. And then you got me watching TNA every week for over a year after that. And 2016 was like one of their best years in forever. Mainly because of him. Because Matt Hardy brought everybody in like me, but then I realized all the other cool stuff and cool people had there. So I was introduced to a whole new world of wrestling, and that just escalated from there. So yeah, I kind of fell off for a bit afterwards, especially with the whole thing with them screwing the Hardys over, and then they left. And that was when I kind of fell off afterwards, because then all those mergers and stuff. Then Jeff Jarrett came in and rebranded the whole thing, but then it went back to it a couple months later. Yeah, the whole Global Force shenanigans. Like, I fell off there because it was just so confusing and dumb that I was like, whatever. But then I've been going back like in and out of it way more, like over the last year and a half, because they were just doing so much good stuff, especially like a year or two ago with their tag division when they had LAX, when they had the Lucha Brothers. Just killing it. Every week was must see for them.
Machine Guns came back recently.
Yeah, and like they still kind of are.
The guy I saw wrestle a lot recently.
Yeah, and Alex Shelley, I think he's still hurt a bit, unfortunately. But yeah, like I watched that show when they were the surprise like opponents for, at the time, the Rascals. Now, two of them MSK in NXT, which is crazy as well.
Getting that shirt.
Yeah, with like, so it's like. I saw them come back because everybody was like, "Oh, it can be Motor City, it can be whatever." Like everybody had all these things, but I was like, "Could it be Motor City?" Because they weren't really doing, they hadn't really been anywhere big in a while because one or the other had been hurt for a bit,
right.
And then Alex Shelley had retired for like a year or two, a few years ago. But then they came back, and I that's another thing that got me watching again. Like I'll watch an Impact like major show if I'm not watching consistently, and that usually dictates if I want to tune in more or not. And from how this card looks alone, I'm probably gonna try to tune in more than I have been again, because this has a lot of potential to set up some even more insane stuff than the whole Forbidden Door mumbo jumbo that they've been doing.
Yes.
Yeah, the Forbidden Door, I think at this point only applies to WWE. I think everybody else is just working with each other, and I cannot wait for the inevitable New Japan AEW Impact show that'll happen.
I want it so bad, because
Ring of Honor and New Japan tried doing one, and it was just like,
yeah, it was the most 50-50 show, because everything ROH did was awful and everything New Japan did was fantastic.
Right, which is pretty on brand. But I think those three shows, Impact, AEW, and New Japan, can have a great killer showing, and maybe they save it till next year's WrestleMania weekend. When it's in Texas. And Texas is a great wrestling state. People love wrestling out in Texas. I'm damn close. Oklahoma's pretty damn close, and I can feel it from here. But there's this one thing I want to mention from Justin Cole in the comments. He said this about half an hour ago, which is crazy. But he was talking about the whole WWE being hurt by NBC and how they're on USA, and now the network is Peacock in the States. I think that's why they're hurting so bad. And I think that's why other shows are doing so good. Because there's so much, we just got done talking about AEW or Impact for the last 20 some minutes, half an hour. And that's how excited we are about talking about these folks, right? Not only is there alternatives to wrestling, but they're good alternatives to wrestling. Usually when I remember the Monday Night Wars Part 2 with TNA with Hogan and Bischoff against against Raw.
Yeah.
That was, and they moved to Mondays as a flex.
For 4 weeks.
Right. And they're like, this is a huge mistake. And then Raw's like, because even though Raw at the time wasn't the best, it was still better than TNA.
Yeah.
And now that Impact is prime wrestling television, the card we just listed off, it was that's an exciting ass card, especially for something following WrestleMania. I really dig what Impact is doing. And AEW is benefiting off of this as well. That's why, am I crazy for saying that AEW will Dynamite will beat Raw one day in the ratings? Am I crazy for saying that?
I don't think so, especially because I meant to come in with that earlier when you were talking about it. But it seems kind of what? But Raw, even the Raw after Mania, I would have said this if the show did happen last week, because we obviously would have talked about Raw probably. I was going from WrestleMania day 1 to 2, I mean, me watching with you guys, and both shows being fantastic.
A lot of fun.
Pretty much overall, top to bottom, both ended up being really good. Then going to Raw the next day, the show sucks.
Yes.
Like, how do you have
the worst Raw after Mania probably ever?
Yeah, which is crazy because we thought about that last year, but that one ended up being okay in comparison.
That's a fact,
like,
Justin.
Crazy how they have big pay-per-views that are really successful, and then especially Mania, which you want to be as big as it's successful and good overall. And then the next show following that, you think that cool stuff's going to happen. And we got the Viking experience, Raiders war machine. And that was like it. And then Charlotte showed up and then ruined a match that wasn't really that good either. Anyway, it was awful. How you go from the highest of highs to lowest lows. I remember that happened with the last Mania that's you, Victor, and I watched together, Chris, because we watched WrestleMania. It was when the one where Becky won in the main event. And then the next day we watched
35. That was 35.
Or I don't remember the number.
36 was last year Pandy at the Performance Center.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So it was 35. Yeah, but then the next day we watched Raw, and when it was over, we were like, God, that show sucked. That was awful. And then Victor had said something that I remember every day. He's just like, I don't understand how you try so hard for Raw to be the A show, and it ends up being the worst almost every time. And it's still
right. And Justin said in the chat, like, it's like the only I can only get through SmackDown and NXT. Plus, that third hour of Raw is atrocious, and Vince will never drop it because it makes him too much money. But I cannot stand the length of Raw. Don't get me wrong, I love like Rhea Ripley and Asuka and Drew McIntyre, the New Day, the Hurt Business before they broke up, which I still don't understand that decision. I like a lot of bits and pieces. When Bad Bunny was doing the stuff,
there they are.
No,
oh God,
no, half of them don't even exist anymore.
They're invading.
I mean, here's the thing.
God.
Nick, stop it. That was I like you try to keep them on screen and talk at the same time. Retribution, like they just dropped the whole gimmick and they don't even have masks anymore. They're like, wait a minute, is that Dominic Daja? No, that's T-Bar.
Oh God.
I will never understand the like they try to make, and it's a whole different high spot for a different day too. Like I don't understand why they think we're dumb and we're like, yo, that's Dio Madden. He got killed by Brock Lesnar a couple years ago. But
yes, we will get to that.
Yeah,
next week. I plan on that being a segment on next week's episode.
We can talk about that for hours. But Impact and AEW are definitely benefiting from WWE's mishandling of their own shows. I think SmackDown is only being successful, again, to bring up that NBC Universal point, is because it's on Fox.
Yes.
If SmackDown was on USA, Lord Jesus, like Dynamite would have eclipsed SmackDown by now in ratings. I do think so. If no one's watching Raw, no one's going to watch SmackDown because they're going to think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the diehards are going to be the ones that watch, but how many of us are really there to watch the weekly programming? Not too many.
Right. Well, listen, we spent a lot of time on Impact, but now it's time to pivot back in what we call our fourth fall of this episode. And here's how we're going to be doing it, people.
Double dose, baby. I love the 2 + 2 = 4.
That was sus, but
that was weird.
We will be talking about our top 4 wrestlers in NXT history, in the NXT Mount Rushmore of WrestleReel.
So how's this gonna go? Yes. So how's this gonna go? I sent this to Nick. What was that, a couple days ago? I'm like, hey, I think we were already talking about WrestleReel for this week. I'm like, yo, what if we did this? He's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Because this is going to spark some conversation about who the top 4 wrestlers are of NXT's history. Now, this can be interpreted in different ways. It could be like, I bet some of us may pick the best wrestlers or the best characters or the best both. Characters that mean a lot to NXT for whatever reason. Like, I know we'll have some overlap. I think there's one name that needs to be there. But we'll get there when we get there. I do have a bunch of special considerations, but we'll save those for once we all reveal our lists. But Jacob, since you are the guest on this program, and you are no stranger to NXT television, to NXT programming, who do you think make up the Mount Rushmore of NXT? And for context, why are we having this conversation? Because WWE on Fox made me think of it. They tweeted something. They tweeted the same subject.
So
And I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
They didn't entirely tweet the same subject. What they did, and I don't agree with it, is they said that the Mount Rushmore was the only 2-time wrestling or NXT champion.
False.
Which is not true.
Yeah.
But Jacob, take it away.
By all means.
Well, obviously, the one that's gonna be on all of ours is Finn Balor because who else? You know, like that dude brought he was the longest reigning. I don't know if he still is. I don't remember. Like longest reigning NXT champion. Was absolutely beloved and made a big splash as soon as he showed up. He was one of the maybe one of the first couple like big like indie names that they brought into NXT. He was one of them. Because like they didn't show it when he debuted to help out Hideo Itami at the time, but like on the screen it said Prince Devitt and everybody lost their minds. But then they switched it to say Finn Balor, and then that's what they showed on the screen. But there people had like live footage and like pictures or whatever of it saying that, so that people were like, "Oh my God, he's here!" But then had his name change afterwards. But like, yeah, it was one of the biggest things with when it came to NXT, where people like when they get people. Oh, am I still here?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. But like that was one of the like biggest things where people were like, "Dang." Usually when they sign some indie person and put them on WWE television, it usually ends up being awful. But I think that's one of the biggest ones and one of the first big ones where they were like, wow, they had got something WWE related, got this big indie, and they had faith in them. They knew what to do with them. They let them roll with all this stuff, and they pushed them to the moon, basically. Like before that was like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to an extent because he was putting on some of the best matches in the company's history, just with literally anyone. But yeah, like when it came to him, like, yeah, he won because he won the belt off of Kevin Owens. So it was like kind of in a row as well. Like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were big deals, and they were like treating them like big deals. And then they did the same thing with Finn Balor. So obviously Finn Balor for 12 times as much faith in the Finn Balor as it did, with Kevin Owens, because he kind of got fast tracked to the main roster as well because they realized how good he was. Right. And then Sami Zayn was there, for a while afterwards, mainly putting on the greatest matches with everybody all over the place. And that's what NXT started getting known for at that time, was that the best matches. And they were usually involving Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Finn Balor. And then somebody who I wasn't sure if I would include in like a Mount Rushmore, but the more I think of it, yeah, I think he should, is Shinsuke Nakamura. Because he's one of the biggest when it comes to like foreign, like not from America or Canada, like the other, or like not from an predominantly English speaking country like the others. Because we've seen in WWE's history that if you didn't speak English at all, or didn't speak it that much, or had a really strong accent, more often than not, Vince McMahon didn't really care much for you. And, they, even if they were the best wrestler on some of the best wrestlers on the shows, on the rosters, on the cards, they didn't really get a fair shake. But Shinsuke Nakamura was one of the biggest names in Japan at the time. And literally his last match before joining NXT was against, or one of those last ones was against AJ Styles, who then joined right after that match. And then I think within the same calendar year, Shinsuke was there. And with his first match being against Sami Zayn, like I said, like you couldn't have had a better recipe to like show how big of a star this guy is and can be. And then they ran with it. And then in little to no time at all, he wins the title. And like every title match you can think of that Shinsuke Nakamura was fantastic. Everything about it was crazy. They even like pulled the surprise. I think still one of the biggest, like sort of out of nowhere changes that they've done with the NXT title, where Bobby Roode beat him. Like nobody expected that because Shinsuke was so hot. But then because he was so hot at that time, then they pushed him up to the main roster afterwards. And that's been less than stellar in the like 3 years that's been going on.
Right.
And I'm still very upset about that. Although it's kind of been getting better recently, but also not. And they should have put the world title on him and then punch AJ Styles in the balls afterwards. But whatever. That's just me and probably a lot of other people actually. But yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura was, I think, the biggest proponent of them having somebody that's when he showed up didn't speak very much English at all, but still like he's one of the biggest foreign talents and they realized that him as a wrestler, and it realized he had all this charisma, and he didn't even have to speak the same language as the people watching the show. Like he got all these people invested. On top of that, they nailed his theme song, and like that's literally half of a wrestler's persona. Like if you don't get like immediately recognize who it is with a theme song, then there's something missing there. But from day one, they knew what they had, and they rolled with it, and they played to all his strengths, and he was doing everything was amazing. Then it led to him winning the Royal Rumble like 2 years later. Like it's crazy how that even happened. Like even when he came to NXT, they're like, oh, I don't know if he'll ever get to that point. But he very nearly was world champion and still should have been. And he won the Royal Rumble on the main roster. And sure, it's dwindled a lot since then for him there. But because of everything happening in NXT and them knowing gold when they had it, similar with Finn Balor and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, that all went together with it. And honestly, I guess I probably should have started with him first with how much I mentioned him. But the more I'm thinking about it, I think Sami Zayn absolutely deserves a spot on Mount Rushmore as well, because like I said, every single match, at least high profile match that he had with somebody, even the lower ones, like on a random episode of NXT, like they would just have him wrestle, Tyler Breeze for whatever reason, and they would absolutely tear the house down. It's just like, they have and somebody who still is like one of the best wrestlers and workers in the world still. And, like even with him, like, for especially early on when NXT was getting into what it is now, they still had people from the main roster showing up or whatever. And Cesaro for a long time was like the final boss of NXT.
Right.
Like they're like, they're like, this guy's not even really on this show. He's in the big leagues on the main roster. If you can beat that guy, then that shows you have what it takes to be anywhere, to be on any show. If you can beat, Cesaro. And then Sami Zayn and Cesaro had one of the best matches literally ever, at least especially in NXT history. Like overall, yeah, that match deserves all the love it gets. But especially for NXT itself, like that was two of the best workers, in wrestling that have been forever, were then, and still are today. And, he was just killing it. Like even like with the fatal, there was like, what was it? NXT Fatal 4-Way, where the whole show was based around a title match.
Hell yeah.
Fatal 4-Way. And it was Sami Zayn and Tyler Breeze and Tyson Kidd. And then Neville was the champion still, and then retaining that match. But like all four of those, fantastic, had singles matches before that were fantastic. The fact that they made a Fatal 4-Way as entertaining and as jaw-dropping as they did was crazy, because usually in WWE, when it comes to stuff like that, there's just a bunch of shenanigans and like 4 different, 1v1 matches happen and then somebody wins. And yeah, it had parts like that because that's how most matches like that are done. But still, like the way they were all just going back and forth, like everybody played their part perfectly. Everything went perfectly. Everybody got their stuff in. Like everybody looked amazing, and you thought that anybody could win it. And that doesn't always happen when you have a wrestling show or a title match period where you think anybody can win this. Not only anybody can win this and it'd be believable, but anybody can win this and I'd be okay with it. Especially. And that was something that's something NXT has been good at, I'd say predominantly, since they've become what they are now. Where like most of the time when they have title matches, especially that like pre-pandemic, every show was better than the main roster show. And like every title match, they would always be the last 3 matches to go on more often than not. And like, again, the same thing with that. Like, and you think anybody could win, and I wouldn't be too surprised. But either way, no matter who wins, retains, new champion, whatever, it's going to be a good match. And I'm excited to see what all goes on. And then when it comes to the final 4 or the final 4th one on the NXT Mount Rushmore, it's kind of hard, honestly, because like a part of me wants to say someone, but even though they kind of weren't there for for as long as the other ones.
The 4 spot was the hardest for me to think of.
Yeah, but I think, and maybe in light of recent events is why I started thinking about it more. But honestly, I think Samoa Joe, like with the time he was in NXT, deserves a spot there. Because from the moment that dude showed up, literally everything he was a part of was must see. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody would want to know what's going on. And like, if originally it's just, he's face, he's teaming with Finn Balor. They win the first Dusty Classic, whatever. But then he turns heel and gets into his wheelhouse and is cutting banger promos every week, just straight murking everybody that shows up. And then eventually he gets the title. It's, I believe, still the first person to beat the demon version of Finn Balor since he's been in WWE, period, in that cage match. And like, nobody saw that coming, but it was, even at the same time, it was believable because Samoa Joe is the baddest dude in the room whenever he walks in. So like, even then, like, you had this mystifying character that was seemingly undefeatable in the demon Finn Balor, and Samoa Joe beats him with like a second or top rope muscle buster in a cage match. Like a move I don't even know if he did anywhere else, or at least not that many times. And then even after that, when he did lose the title, his whole gimmick after that, before I think he had a rematch or something, and then lost, and then went to the main roster sometime after that. But his whole gimmick after he lost the title was that he was ruining the show that William Regal had set up just to get William Regal's attention. He was just, at any given moment for like weeks after that, he would show up in the middle of a match or in the middle of a promo and then just start killing everybody and taking microphones and demanding his rematch, or he'd keep, I think he straight up said he'd keep stacking bodies until he got what he was looking for. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't in there for that long, but everything he did was memorable. You could go back to any episode that he was on, whether it's just a promo or it's like a short match or a squash match, or go to any of the takeovers where he had a match. It was like must see. And it just goes to show how incredibly talented Samoa Joe is. And the fact that they couldn't just do that, but again, on any main roster shows, is a crime. So yeah, that is my NXT.
Who's your 4? Say it one more time.
It's Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe, and then how have I forgotten? I just went over this. Nakamura. Yeah, those 4.
All right, Nick. What you got for me, Bubba?
Plain and simple. Here's how I'm going to go through mine. Finn Balor's the greatest NXT wrestler of all time.
Holy shit.
Adam Cole is the greatest NXT champion of all time.
Holy shit.
And DIY is the greatest
tag teams.
Tag team.
Oh, you did a tag team, you mother trucker.
No. I'm keeping him as Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are on the NXT Mount Rushmore for me, because they were able to do it as single stars. They were able to do it as a tag team. They were able to do it as heels. They were able to do it as faces all different times throughout their run. I'll leave it as plain and simple with Finn Balor. Finn Balor is one of the greatest NXT wrestlers of all time. He's the only 2-time NXT champion that I will put on this list. Adam Cole is Adam freaking Cole. I wanted to use Nakamura instead of Adam Cole, but I didn't, because I kind of feel like NXT is really thriving right now. But Ciampa and Gargano are almost battling for 1 and 2 for me, because they're so damn good at what they do. They carried NXT for the longest time. They put on 5-star matches every single time that they wrestle. And one of them is teamed up with Timothy Thatcher, but he hasn't done anything, so I can't put him on here.
Not yet.
But and also, I did in fact order the MSK T-shirt as we were doing this show. That said, I think that Ciampa and Gargano are 2 masters of what they do. I think that they're both great as heels. They're both great as faces. They created some of the best storytelling in NXT history, which is why those 4, Adam Cole, Finn Balor, and DIY, are my Mount Rushmore of NXT. Chris Anthony Lopez, take it away, baby!
Okay, so
Terrible.
For those watching at home, at the end of this, we're going to try and combine the 3 of these to make one. And I'm gonna tell you right now, there's some names y'all mentioned that weren't on my list.
Anthony Lopez. Why was Velveteen Dream on your Mount
Rushmore?
I mean, yikes!
He had all the potential.
I know.
Dan, I no comment. But in my perfect world, he is on this list. In my perfect fantasy world.
Same with Keith Lee for me.
And Keith, yes, and Keith. But I'm gonna do the one that has been mentioned both times, and that's Finn Balor. Of course, Finn Balor's on my thing. Of course he is.
Okay, so overall, Mount Rushmore, Finn Balor is the first.
He's a lock.
Absolutely,
he's a lock by far. Finn Balor is a guy that I fell in love with almost immediately as someone who didn't watch or even know of New Japan the second I was watching NXT. Like I thought that this is so cool, and he was doing all this crazy stuff in Japan. I sound like Shaggy at the time, and I'm like,
yes,
right, and I'm like, dude, like this guy came from the Bullet Club. What's that? And Finn Balor opened up the world of wrestling to me, and I'm like, yo, this is really really cool. I loved his matches. I love what he was doing. The Demon is one of the most interesting things that WWE's ever had, and the fact that they don't use it anymore now that NXT Finn Balor doesn't even do that because he's like, no, you guys aren't worthy of that, and we aren't. We really aren't. And I mean, Jacob, you might be right. Samoa Joe might be the only person to beat the Demon on the main roster. No one's beaten the Demon, which makes me question why Finn Balor isn't always the Demon. But that's besides the point. But no, Finn Balor, just his NXT run is incredible, and let's not forget what he's doing now. We keep looking at then before he got called up. Let's think about what he's doing now as well. My man won the NXT Championship back, has been feuding with some of the best faces, inevitably turning them heel. Johnny Gargano was like, yeah, I'm Johnny Takeover. And then Finn Balor killed him. He killed the face out of him. And now he's like, oh, it's the way. I'm with my wife and the Austin Theory and Indy Hartwell. Like, we all love indie wrestling. Gotta love it. So, he beat the face out of Johnny Gargano, and now he's having some of the best matches that NXT is having right now. Finn Balor is super damn over, and I'm so glad we had him as the Pandy champion for a little bit, for as long as we've had him, because my God, we needed him. Lord knows we needed him. Finn Balor's second run at NXT. Let's not forget it. I'm not going to equate it because it's not as good, nowhere near as good, I should say. But it's like when Shawn Michaels came back and he got a smile and he found Jesus. That's how Finn Balor's second run NXT was, because we were like, oh my God, it's the second coming of Finn Balor in NXT. We were all overjoyed, over the moon, because my man was being misused to hell on the main roster. He separated his shoulder, he tore some in the shoulder, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to play with this anymore. And then they forgot about him. They forgot all about him. So going back to NXT was for the better, and he elevates the brand. That's why he was the guy when AEW was around. That's why they chose him. Yes, my first pick is Finn Balor.
Chris, 100%. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can I predict something right here? Because
yes.
Jacob and I are a bunch of sexist marks. Tell me why Asuka, Sasha Banks, and Bayley are on your Mount Rushmore of NXT, because we forgot about them.
I am so glad you mentioned that. The one lady that did make my list, I did have a lady on my Mount Rushmore, and her name is Sasha Banks. Of course, it's Sasha Banks. I'm such a freaking mark for Sasha.
Jacob, I can't speak for you. I forgot to mention any women on this list, and I should have put Bayley on there.
The exact same thing. I was like, I should have put Bayley on there.
Sasha Banks, look at Sasha Banks that wrestled at WrestleMania, right? Look at the one we got right now. She's incredible. This incredible character. She's a great wrestler. I still think she has my second favorite match in NXT history. Her and Bayley at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn is one of the best matches NXT's ever put on. Just the story that Bayley had with Banks, and yes, Bayley was a special consideration on my list. I did write down Bayley as one of my many names I wrote down. But Bayley was damn good, but I just preferred Sasha. I saw more upside in Sasha, and WWE felt the same way. And what Sasha was doing, not only for the women's division, but as a Black woman, I cannot let that slide. And I always bring it back to race on this show, but it means a lot to me, seeing Sasha and someone that looks like Sasha succeed. Mm-hmm. I'm probably not crying. I had to burp. But I think Sasha Banks had herself one hell of a run. Dare I say she had a better run than Charlotte did but Charlotte's over here like the queen, as she should be. But I think Banks is someone that had a better run at NXT, who's there a little bit longer, but damn it, like she made her presence known the second she showed up on the main roster. People knew who she was because of how good she was in NXT. And that feud with Bayley was phenomenal. Some of the best stuff that WWE has done, or WWE adjacent has done in the last decade. I think their story still continues to this day. We will see Bayley and Sasha wrestle for the rest of time, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They'll always wrestle. They'll always wrestle one another. But damn it, I had to include a lady, and I thought it was a no-brainer to put Sasha Banks. I thought it was a no-brainer. Now, moving on, a name that Jacob had mentioned, Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn got himself over with Ska. Let's think about that for a second.
Yeah,
my man's intro is kick ass. I always catch myself being like that's me, right? I'm over. I love Sammy's character. He was like the ultimate babyface, especially when NXT first became a weekly program. Mm-hmm. Every reason that Jacob mentioned, I doubled down on that wholeheartedly. Now he was the one that got Kevin Owens over because they used that pre-established feud they had in Ring of Honor, literally everywhere else, to bring in Kevin Owens, and he got Kevin over single-handedly. Sami Zayn did. Lest not forget, Jacob, you had Shinsuke Nakamura on your list. His first match in NXT, Sami Zayn, my favorite match of the last decade. I love Zayn Nakamura so much on that Takeover Dallas. I love it so much because that was my first introduction to Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn's last match at NXT. And boy, did he leave on a freaking banger. He left on a banger. Like, not too many people get to say they did that, where their last match anywhere was a banger. A freaking, like, God, I love that match so much. Right. And I know, like, Sami was there. He put over a lot of folks in the process. And, like, he had that killer 2 out of 3 falls match with Cesaro that's still rewatchable all these years later. Sami Zayn, when I think of NXT, when I think of guys on the main roster, I'm like, yo, who did they squander from NXT? For the longest time, I thought it was Sami. And the crowd and everybody felt that way. This isn't an original take by any means. I just think that, like, Sami deserves to be on this list because Sami Zayn, to me, is the shit, man. I still love Sami. It took Sami, they gave him his own voice and they let him do what he wants, and look what's going on. Finally, after years of being on the main roster, they're finally letting him do what he was doing at NXT just as a heel, and he makes it work. And his matches are still good. I know injuries have gotten in the way of his main roster run, but in NXT, my man was a dog. He might have been losing all the time, but damn did he look good doing it. Like, Sami Zayn could take a loss and he'll be perfectly fine afterwards. Like, the only reason why he was squandered on the main roster is because they didn't give him a match to lose. You know? Like, I'd rather see Sami Zayn lose on pay-per-view a la WrestleMania than have him not be there at all. And I love Sami Zayn to death. He's one of the reasons why I love NXT so much. So this may be a personal pick for me, but I love Sami. When I think of NXT, I think of Sami Zayn.
Yes.
Now, my fourth face and my undisputed one pick. Undisputed. When I said earlier to start this whole segment off that I thought we were going to have one name on this, and Jacob's like, oh, Finn Balor. I was like, because come on. His name is Johnny Takeover. Like, it's Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
The man's run in NXT. He hasn't been injured too much. Look at what the man's been doing. The storylines this man's been a part of. Whatever you think about the way, all right, cool. He got over Austin Theory, Indy Hartwell, and when they brought in Candice to the fold, finally, Candice is way better as a heel with Johnny than as a face by her lonesome. Yeah. And I think, like, the way, like, I know that Austin Theory is the most liked person right now on the internet, especially after the damn releases. His name was trending for all the wrong reasons. But, like, damn it, he's on television, and he's like, what is Austin Theory, like 23? Imagine learning from Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny wrestling is the shit. When he was going, like, when he won NXT belt against Adam Cole, right, the vacated belt, that I rewatched that match recently, and that match rules. Is it finishers galore, kickouts galore? Yes, it is. But also, when Omega and Page faced off against the Bucks at Revolution 2019 or 2020, right? Everybody was like, that match rule, 6 stars, 6 stars. Everybody kicked out of everything. Like everybody, like Kenny Omega kicked out of like the what was it, the golden trigger? And he kicked out at 1.
Yeah.
He kicked out at 1.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Like 25 minutes into the match, that match was like 40 minutes long. It was ridiculous. But people always complain and whine about kickouts and finishers. But I rewatched Cole Gargano recently. I'm like, both these men are great. And Gargano winning the NXT Championship for the first time, a belt that his partner from DIY, which I almost was tempted to put DIY as a team in one selection, which I was mad that I thought you were gonna do it first, Nick. Like I was this close to doing it.
That's why I put them both together.
I understand the Tommaso Ciampa move, but my man's been so riddled with injuries, and I'm like, I have to include the other 3, and Gargano was the first name I thought of. Mm-hmm. Johnny Gargano to me, he is NXT. I never want him to leave. I never want Johnny Gargano to leave NXT. Never, 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 never. Will it happen? Inevitably. But
at some point, yeah. But
it almost did before too.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, my man was on SmackDown once, and I'm like, this
and Raw.
Like, and Raw. I'm like, this makes sense. But you know what? I'm like, no, keep it NXT. Like I of course I love everybody succeeding and doing all these great things. But I think Johnny Gargano right now, as a multiple-time North American champion, multiple-time tag champion, multiple-time or one-time NXT champion, or is he 2-time? I thought is it just one
He's
time?
one. I did my research on this before.
Thank you.
Because I was going to say, like, collectively, they've both won two. Oh, well, okay, never mind. That's not really that important of a stat.
No, and I love Johnny Gargano. When I think NXT and the face of NXT, I want the guy who's been there for the longest amount of time possible and succeeding at every little thing he does. So it's Johnny Gargano.
Can we? Okay, so I guess collectively, I think that this is actually going to be a lot easier than I thought. We have Finn Balor.
Yes,
I can completely agree with you two on Sami Zayn if Jacob agrees on Gargano.
I agree.
And then we'll agree to disagree, even though it should be Bayley. I'll put Sasha Banks on there.
I know Justin in the chat, he put in his 4. He put Balor, Page, another name, special consideration. Yes. Adam Cole, that was a hard one for me to leave off. And Asuka, another special consideration.
Sasha. Even though I will associate Bayley with her instead.
I mean, Jacob, you had Nakamura and Joe. Those are the other 2, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to include a lady, though, right?
With it being Sasha Banks, yes, I agree.
So, Finn, Sammy, because Sammy is NXT, like, is the easiest comment I could ever hear. Sami Zayn is NXT.
Yeah, before Johnny Gargano was NXT, Sami Zayn.
Right, it was Sami Zayn. Yeah,
but Johnny Gargano picked up that torch, and now. And Sasha Banks is one of the greatest NXT women's champions ever. So I completely can. You know what, boys? Let's end this stream right now and let's go start chiseling it out and rock. We'll all meet up.
Wait a minute.
Let's build our own Mount Rushmore that nobody will understand except for marquee wrestling fans like us.
I do want to also show some love to, of course, Tommaso Ciampa. So I'm glad you mentioned him, Nick, because he does deserve a lot of love as well. Charlotte, doesn't matter what you think of her, she's really damn good at what she does. Bayley, of course, special consideration. DIY as a team, special consideration. American Alpha as a team, special consideration.
Oh my God.
Keith Lee is the first North American and NXT champion.
The first duel, which they could have done so much more with.
Right. Instead of having to relinquish I'm gonna relinquish the mid-card belt. Y'all are good. Right. God. That one. Asuka, Owens, and Paige are my other special considerations.
Completely couldn't.
Paige was the first one to really make the jump from NXT to WWE main roster and succeed by leaps and bounds. Like there was no point where there was like a lull. Like when she first showed up and she beat AJ Lee the day after WrestleMania, everybody lost their damn mind.
And Jinder Mahal. We have to put him on.
Let's pump the brakes. Like it's cool. But Paige is damn close for me, Justin. I'm glad you put her at 2, which that's high praise. Putting her at 2. Adam Cole, Jacob, to answer your question from earlier, I believe Adam Cole eclipsed Finn Balor as the longest reigning NXT champion.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought if there's anybody, it was him.
Yeah, like I think it's Cole, and
collectively it's Finn Balor. It's got to be, but Adam Cole.
I thought about putting Undisputed Era as a collective.
I was thinking about that too.
But I thought that was cheating. I wanted to put 2 guys. Imagine 4 in one slot, and like that's a lot. Like
one more name before we move on to another interesting segment I found on Instagram. Walter.
Ah, shitballs.
Do we consider NXT UK as?
I thought about that as well, but I was like, considering NXT UK is so much newer still, and it is considered separate, although they are like connected. Like Walter is, he is still the UK champion, and he's technically supposed to be on that show, like only or mainly. But NXT likes having the most popular people all the time, so they bring him over. So I guess technically he would count, but I don't know.
He's like the longest rating champ in WWE's modern era, and that includes all belts of all kinds under the WWE banner. But damn it, I didn't even think of Walter. Special considerations for Walter.
Well, everybody, we have one more quick segment.
He's my 5.
Get into our heated high spot of us complaining about trash bags, and that is.
That was smooth. That was clean as hell.
I tried that one. I tried that time. And that is, I saw a thing on Instagram questioning who will dethrone Roman Reigns. Why is it Brock Lesnar?
Oh God! Oh,
is that how we're
no.
starting? Is that how we're starting?
Oh,
That's how I'm starting, because I don't see how
Jesus.
or is it Dwayne The Rock Johnson? It's one of
No,
those
you're getting
two.
worse, Nick. You're getting worse.
It's one of those two. Seriously, who dethrones Roman Reigns? It's either Brock or The Rock. Brock or Rock connection.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Okay. Wow. It's definitely not where I thought this conversation or how this conversation was going to start.
me neither.
Can you explain the Brock and Rock picks, Nick?
Because they're booking Roman to be this ginormous big wrestler, and I don't know. They're booking Roman to be this big, brutal force, and who's going to end up defeating him in the end other than somebody who's even larger than life? That's my big thing. I think that if they're going to do it like Brock, they have a checkered past together. They have a... I don't see anybody currently on the SmackDown roster who can beat Roman Reigns, because if it wasn't going to be Kevin Owens, then it shouldn't have been anybody else. Right. Cesaro is an interesting pick, but Cesaro does not have a single chance in the world of defeating Roman Reigns right now. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make any sense because he's too new to this main event scene. Clearly, they're moving forward with the Seth Rollins stuff. I think eventually you could see Cesaro become a world champion, but it's going to be after Roman Reigns handles his business with one of those two guys. I hate it, but it's going to happen.
Wow.
See, my thing
On that,
my thing was
go ahead,
like, my thing was like, when it comes to dethroning Roman Reigns, when I first saw that, I was like, well, that could have and honestly should have been Samoa Joe, but obviously we see how that turned out, because that would have been an incredible idea and it would have worked out perfectly, because they only had like a couple matches with each other, and I don't know if Roman Reigns still ever beat Samoa Joe, so that could have been like an ongoing thing where whenever they're one-on-one, Joe always wins, and that could have been a cool long-term thing they took in. But while I don't agree with it being Brock Lesnar, because please God no, I'm so tired of this, and The Rock, because I don't think he's ever gonna do a full-on wrestling match again. Still, like, I don't know. Like, I do understand, like, Roman, if it wasn't Edge or Bryan at Mania, and it turned out not to be, I'm at a loss for who dethrones him. Like, because the next thing I thought of was similar to Nick, like, Samoa Joe's is the best choice. And then we all thought it was going to happen. Then, like, everything Nick said was a fantastic idea, and it should have happened, and then it didn't. So
I'll start writing for WWE for you. Don't worry.
there you go. But like, yeah, like Cesaro has this kind of feud going on, and this is the first. Like everybody has said for years, like, oh, maybe Cesaro should be world champion. No, this dude is so good all the time. How has he not been? And then it's like, this is like the most, as of now, like people thought that for years, but as of now, it's like the most believable out of all the times people thought that about Cesaro. But I do agree, it's probably not going to be Cesaro, at least not like this soon, especially after Roman basically committing a double homicide in the main event of Mania and retaining his title. Like that's a pretty big thing. And if he lost it like a pay-per-view after that, that wouldn't look too great. So with anybody on the SmackDown roster, like you're talking about, like, I don't know. Like Seth was mentioned, like because of the Cesaro thing, but like maybe
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make. That's the thing. It doesn't make sense. But like thinking of from WWE's perspective, like if they ever have him drop the belt, because honestly, like they might just have him have the belt forever. Which, because with how fantastic this gimmick is, I'm not opposed to that. But like thinking from WWE's perspective, they'll do things that, yes, it'll be Jimmy Uso. That's
holy
it'll
God.
be Jimmy Uso. The guy we never thought would get a world title match will get a second one, and that'll be the one. That's all he needs.
Don't get him confused with Jay. Don't get him confused with Jay.
You're thinking of Jay.
Oh, you're right. That means even better than that. Forget what I just said. Even better than that, where one failed, the other one succeeded, and then you have a whole other thing going on.
Triple threat. Next WrestleMania 38. Triple threat.
Oh,
well, listen, Jacob, I'm glad that you agree that it's going to be Brock Lesnar too. Chris Anthony Lopez.
Look, I think I cannot believe Nick started off this count so damn hot. Okay. I don't want to be that guy, but the dirt sheets are telling me that WWE wants Roman Reigns with the title to face off against Lesnar and Rock.
And John Cena.
And that's it. So hear me out. John Cena is a 16-time world champion. 16. Count them, right? 16.
16.
When John inevitably wrestles again, I think that's a matter of time. And I think, as crazy as this might sound, I think The Rock is going to wrestle sooner. Jacob, I think you... is The Rock going to ever wrestle a run again? Hell no. He might have one warm-up match with somebody, but he will wrestle Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 32 or something like that.
I have heard some things about that.
Not 32, 39. I'm thinking 39.
Yeah.
32 already happened. 39 in Hollywood, at Hollywood Mania.
Yeah.
That's because it's The Rock and Roman Reigns. Yeah, whatever. But what if Cena comes back and he beats Roman? He's like, haha, you still suck, bitch. And it's like, oh, it's this whole thing, right? But then like Roman, and you can even make it a multi-person match, like how I thought WrestleMania was going to play out, and have Roman not get pinned. And Roman's like, you can't beat me. One-on-one, you can't beat me. And John's like, I got the belt. You can't see me. Make-A-Wish kids. And like it's this whole thing. And like I think that's where you properly have Roman best John Cena one-on-one in a proper passing of the torch type of match. Yeah. But that requires Cena, to me, having the belt. Granted, Cena's a big enough personality to where he doesn't need a belt of any kind. But imagine the heat that he would get from beating a Roman, especially if Roman's super over once he comes back, or once the fans come back, and then having Cena beating him. Oh Lord Jesus, the fans would lose their damn minds, and that's how you get them to cheer for Roman Reigns, because they want Roman to beat the God. They want Roman to beat the "you can't see me" pink shirt, and like I think it's perfect. Now, to be realistic for a second, it's Cesaro. It should be Cesaro. It should be Cesaro.
I would say that if the WWE didn't destroy The Fiend, I would say it could be The Fiend too. Because like power-wise of the characters, but when they had him lose to Randy Orton at WrestleMania, which is The Fiend's kryptonite, or Bray Wyatt's kryptonite, it doesn't make any sense. But that character is going to need a lot of rebuilding. Cesaro, I get it.
I don't think we're not appreciating Cesaro too much on this show, and I think we should.
We should. Oh,
I think we should.
Let's think.
Match with Seth Rollins. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I that's the thing. I want him to win, but like looking at it from him being the one to dethrone Roman Reigns would be huge, and people have been behind Cesaro forever. So and I feel like people have said like, oh, there's all these opportunities they had and they didn't do it, but I feel like now more than ever is like the closest believably that it could happen, and I want it to happen. I just I feel like with how WWE works, they don't want to do it that soon. Like I said, it probably would happen, like he'd be world champion, but whether it's the one that dethrones Roman or not, that I don't know.
Roman will be champion until WrestleMania 38 at the very least.
Yes.
Roman will have the belt for another year, and it'll be Cesaro will probably face him for the belt at some point and probably lose again, but I think when fans come back, which by what it's looking like, the back half of this year, when fans start coming back and they start doing like other shows outside of wherever the screens are at now. Justin Cole in the chat, I'm big on Cesaro going into the world title picture. He deserves it. Yes, 1,000%.
We hear,
but
real agree.
but Cesaro also should win the damn thing. Like I would go as far as saying, if anyone on the SmackDown roster right now can beat Roman Reigns right at this very moment, it's Cesaro. Close second and special consideration to Big E, formerly Langston.
Yes.
1,000%. If we're thinking of people who can best Roman Reigns, especially when the fans return, because when fans come back, sorry, Seth Rollins, but they're going to start swaying the decisions of some of these things. And I think those two guys are the best bets. Cesaro, as of right now, being the better bet. Because Big E still got some time. Big E will be world champion.
He's going to be
more time,
absolutely.
I hope times over.
I don't think that Cesaro is a guarantee. I think Big E is a guarantee.
And after WrestleMania, I think we can start leaning towards that. Cesaro he's looking better, right? I know my man's not the best at promos. I know that. I'm aware of that. But he's getting better. Just a call in the chest. Seth Rollins is a babyface if they ever do it.
Which yes, he's doing so well as the Messiah right now.
He'll turn heel while he's champion.
Right.
Like that's heel. Seth Rollins is only that's the championship. Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can't be face and have the title at the same time. He can't.
But yeah, it's just that's why I'm like Brock Lesnar, just because I think that they're going to have Roman continue to hold the title for the longest time. Though John Cena doesn't make sense, being that like, oh, this can give Cena that 17th championship, and then in a few years when Roman Reigns beats that, it'll be a big deal.
Damn. That'd be crazy as hell.
Oh my god!
Before we get very angry, because we're all going to get angry. We're all going to get angry.
I'm always angry, Nick. That's my secret.
I want to lighten the mood here with an MJF being the greatest heel of all time tweet when he said, today, Brit Baker is one day closer to eternal rest. Because it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Brit Baker. We love you.
Happy birthday, Brit Baker.
We don't want you to, we do not here at Wrestle Real want you to
oh, Jesus Christ.
rest eternally like MJF does, but
we love Brit Baker over here at Wrestle Real. We do.
We stand. That said, we have reason to be furious right now. Let's get into that.
Let's do it. So for those who don't know what a high spot is on this show, high spots are unpopular opinions, hot takes, things we want to get off our chest here. Usually we just complain and whine about certain things in pro wrestling. Sometimes they're good things. Yeah. Sometimes they're really, really good things. Sometimes they're really, 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 really bad things. Like this one. Like how this one's going to be. And I want Nick to start because he's the one that brought this to my attention. He's the one that wanted to make this the high spot for the week, and I could not agree with him more. So, Nick, please inform Jacob why we're going to complain and probably cry.
Okay, so listen. Touching on this as long as we would regularly is not as important right now because I will admit that the WWE got to the bottom of this and fired the person who did it. That said, this isn't the first occurrence of something like this happening to a person that they released.
And what's this, Nick?
Mickie Aldis. By the way, she'll probably appear in Ring of Honor.
NWA.
NWA, sorry.
Yeah.
Got all of her stuff back from the WWE.
Great.
And it's so sweet of them to have delivered all of the stuff back to them. That said, it was in a freaking trash bag with the name Mickey on it. I'm not making this shit up. The WWE Triple H, out of all people, was the most angry person about this that I saw. He was pissed. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I don't know who she was that was coming out of my throat. But that said, Triple H was pissed. And from what I understand, the guy that they fired, I don't even want to speak his name because, first of all, I don't even remember it. Second of all, doesn't deserve to be spoken. Got fired very easily, which is why I'm not as enraged about it. You know, the fact that the WWE got to the bottom of this instance of it so quickly because it's bad PR doesn't make me as mad about it as I was when it initially happened. You know what I mean? That said, again, this isn't like CM Punk warned us of this. I think that the handling of them firing people is just trash either way because they just go, oh, well, this is for budgetary reasons. You signed $1 billion deal with Peacock and you couldn't even send it people's shit back to them in anything else but a trash bag. The fact that I heard, oh, they're still doing this, it pisses me off. Gail Kim answered back to Mickie James' tweet, I'm pretty sure, saying that this happened to her as well. It's sad. It's disappointing. Mickie James is one of the most cherished women's wrestlers of all time, and you had to do her dirty like this, WWE. Come on. I rest my case.
Nick, you make a great point where Mickie is a legend. She is a legend amongst female wrestlers. When we ranked our top 22 women's wrestlers in WWE history, Mickie James is pretty damn high. We were pretty high on Mickie James for good reason, of course. So when I saw this photo of the trash bag, I didn't believe it, if I'm being frank. I thought it was a joke. I thought Mickie was memeing because Mickie James, she's been getting bold on social media. Awfully bold.
I didn't think that it was real either.
And then I saw the Gail Kim exchange. Like, oh, I remember Gail Kim. Like that's wow.
Another person that we had pretty goddamn high on our list.
Right, another person that we ranked pretty highly, but they said, oh, they still do this? It's happened to me. And then, if that wasn't enough, Matt Cardona said that Chelsea Green, his real life fiance, Chelsea Green's things appeared at their house the same way. Well, how about that? And there were other wrestlers that came out and said that their things came out that way, but they chose not to acknowledge them. Mm-hmm. Oh, that is disgusting. This is like, when did Gail Kim leave WWE?
Like mid late 2000s, yeah.
So it's been over 10 years.
Longer,
this isn't a new. This isn't a one-time thing. This isn't it's a new occurrence. Damn, I'm sorry we didn't catch that. This has been a thing. Just wrestlers are shutting the F up about it because they don't want to tarnish the name that is WWE. Because I mean, damn it, even though people leave, right? People get released, but like Mickie, one of those people, they like, yo, I'm so grateful for Vince McMahon and for WWE. I'm so grateful for them. So grateful. And then bang, trash bag at her front door. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Right.
She left and came back.
She left, was doing more than well for herself. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to go back. I know injuries didn't do her the best this time around, but GD, bro. GD. Like, if WWE isn't already in hot garbage as it is now, pun intended, this puts them there. Like, how does this look? Danhausen, of all people. He quote tweeted it, and he's like, I have so many questions about this. I'm like, yo, Danhausen's talking about the trash bag housing. What the hell is this? Like, I guarantee if I were to go to a WWE show and I would ask 10 people, do you know who Danhausen is? I guarantee none of them would be like, oh yeah, totally, big fan of Danhausen. Because he's so indie. Like, it's not even funny. But if his tweets are like, yo, they do that? What, like, let's be real. All these people that wrestle now probably watched WWE at one point.
Right.
Probably. Mm-hmm. Like they watch the product. They're all watching the Hardys. They're watching Edge and Christian because you hear all these dudes now because they're our age, which is crazy as hell. Why aren't we wrestlers? They're like, yo, I grew up watching Edge. I grew up watching the Hardys, and they idolize WWE. WWE is the home of what a lot of wrestlers. It's a lot of what a wrestlers think that their dream is, what their home is. We see like freaking Frankie Monet on NXT right now, formerly known as Taya Valkyrie. She's like, yo, I've been working for this my whole life, and I'm here. Fuck Frankie Money. Yeah, damn right. Like showing up on NXT. She's great. Granted, it's been 1 week, but she's great. But damn it, how does this look?
Jillian Hall. It happened to her as well.
I was about to say, I was trying to find the specific. It was a tweet or maybe it was an Instagram post. I couldn't remember, but yeah, but like it had a compilation of Mickie James' post and Gail Kim saying like, "Oh wow, I can't believe they still did that." And then Jillian Hall's like, "Well, shoot, I thought that was just me." Like everybody from over the last several decades.
Another wrestler who just came back recently and put over freaking Billy Kay. Sorry.
Yeah.
All this
right.
Full circle. It just doesn't make any sense.
Hell, when it comes to like, if we're like, yeah, the trash bag thing is its own thing, but just talking about the whole releases as a whole in a more complaining sense than rather a more professional sense, like somebody was saying, like I think someone mentioned, like it seemed like Tucker wanted it. I don't know if Tucker really wanted it when it came to releases, but he has been tweeting like, you know, obviously can't say specifics because the 90 days aren't up, but he's been saying stuff like randomly replying to like tweets and stuff. And he's just been like people like say stuff like assuming obviously, or like just saying like, oh, this whatever thing. He's been responding to stuff like, man, you have no idea. Oh man, I can't wait to speak on this stuff. Like Tucker's about to just blow all the doors open on everything that's happened in the last bit of time. Like between last year's releases with all of the pandemic stuff happening and now these releases where there's still pandemic stuff happening, anything bad that was assumed to WWE or suspected of that was a rumor backstage, all of it is going to be out in the open. We're going to learn so much 90 days from now. Like it's going to be crazy. And I would not be surprised if a lot of it is going to be confirmations of a lot of the bad things that we've been hearing about backstage stuff, and maybe even stuff we had no idea about. And then we'll get more like exact quotes from all these people where they're like, don't have anything for you, or like probably some like proposed ideas that were just awful, stuff like that. Like we're going to learn
we get that all the time. Outfits and stuff like that are really bad. And also, if I see a freaking Bo Dallas mailman outfit for him to be on Firefly Funhouse, I'm going to be freaking mad.
Nick, you said that on Wrestle Real like 3 months ago, and I still think it should happen. Even
I've been clamoring for them to do something with Bray Wyatt or Bo Dallas. They could even give him a Fiend-like gimmick. Oh, Chris, what are you doing there?
Oh, you like my hair? No, I'm just upset, man.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like this has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But I was looking back at some old content on the channel, and your hair has changed so much. I looked back at the Midsommar watch along, and you have no beard, and your hair is so different.
I shaved out of boredom during the pandemic.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, we have just all changed so much. I look 100 years older. But no, it's just like it's shit like this that just pisses me off, because it's like, I mean, and God, I cannot wait to hear Tucker what he has to say.
Tucker, come on our show and talk about WWE.
We did tweet about Tucker coming on the show. He has not responded.
Damn it.
I want to tell him how much I love him.
Unironically too. It's unironic. Like the love for Tucker from Nick's POV is it's a thing. Like I'm not even meaning.
It's serious. Just because it's like it's because, but it's, you know what? And this continues on with the high spot stuff. It's because these wrestlers that WWE has no clue what the hell to do with. It's like you have to eventually just start fantasy booking them themselves. You know what I mean? And that's why I was like, oh, let's book a wrestler to be like Jinder Mahal, where we'll just give him a gimmick and out of nowhere we'll push him to the moon type thing. And Chris took it seriously, and I made Tucker Godwin. So it's just like
he made Tucker Godwin.
It's just like it makes no sense what the WWE has done with certain wrestlers. How can you not figure out something to do with? You know what really pisses me off? Another thing that really pisses me off? It almost feels like certain other, like the other people in Lucha House Party just surpassed Kalisto, and that's why he got released.
Well, the thing with Kalisto, though, is that last I remember, he straight up said like a year or so ago that he's like, when my contract's up, I ain't resigning. I'm out of here. I'm pretty sure he like legit like tweeted that.
Good for
But then-
him.
Yeah, but then that's the thing. He didn't get that far. They just straight cut him loose.
Right. So, at the end of the day, WWE, do better.
I'll add this one last thing before you wrap. I know not everybody at WWE knows what's going on at every aspect in the company.
Right.
I'm aware of that. It's a big multi-billion-dollar corporation, and they have to run multiple different parts. And the talent is just one part of that machine. The most important part, but one part of that machine. Like, I understand that. But damn it. What if Mickie James didn't say anything? What if she didn't tweet that damn garbage bag? Like, our high star
like this is going to keep going.
Right. And I hope that this happened last year during that Black Wednesday. It felt like a Friday, probably. But like with Brian Myers, and with Matt Cardona. They're out over here talking like, yo, man, like Cardona's like, yeah, they punished me for getting myself over. Look at the Iconics.
Right.
They got themselves over. Samoa Joe walked in and everyone was like, yeah! he didn't have to say a word. He could have said like cardboard boxes.
Like, greatest program of all time.
Right. Like, oh my God. Like,
I don't give a damn about your family. Oh!
Yeah.
It's like, you fans, I hate you all, like, legitimately. Shoot mad. Oh, he hates us. Like, Samoa Joe could have said anything.
He literally could be like, I am happy to say that Brit Baker is one day closer to her eternal rest. Oh!
And it's like, great tweet. But no, serious, like, on some real shit, they really punish people for getting themselves over. This is no secret. And I think that a lot of these folks that did get released, or a majority of the folks that got released, these are top names, and these will be top names in other companies when come the end of the summer, towards middle of the summer. So whenever this 90 days is up from the release, Joe's probably going to pop up in Impact. The Iconics will probably go to AEW and thrive, or Impact, like what Jacob was saying earlier, and thrive. Like, I don't have a doubt in my mind that this is happening and that they will succeed. It just pisses me off how my favorite wrestling company is, for as much shit as I like to talk about them. Of course, I'm a WWE mark. That's the whole point. Why Nick and I started doing this damn show. We're mercs, such mercs. Like, that's I can't deny it, but it's so frustrating. It's like when your favorite
brothers instead of the kids at heart.
Right? Yeah, we could have did a whole different. This could have been a whole different show, but. It's just it's frustrating. It's like when the people you like do bad things.
Yes.
And you're just like, well, damn, I really like this person. I really like what they're doing, but I hate that one thing they did. And that one thing is glaring and it smacks you across the face.
It's like Velveteen Dream.
Oh, don't say that. With that being said, though, we're gonna wrap the show for today. That's all, because I don't even want to talk about that, man. It just breaks my heart. Jacob Pickett, thank you so much for coming on the program, brother.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoy this a lot. So,
and thank you for being our first guest on our first Wrestle Real Super Show, which honestly, like, we had a lot of shit to talk about. I love it.
Right. I mean, we did blow through almost 2.5 counts in half an hour. Like that. This admittedly probably would have been a longer show if we didn't blow through the first two.
Yeah, that was. I was like,
we're fine.
I was like, this goes into this. This goes into this. Let's talk.
We were excited. It was our first Super Show, an unprecedented 5 counts. Of course, you can follow us down the social medias below. Scroll at the bottom of the screen. You can follow us on Twitter at the ones on top. Jacob, where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to follow you, bro?
My Twitter is at Jake the Snake. Yeah, that's YUH at the end. And I believe that's the same on Instagram, but I don't post anything there. So my Twitter is the place to go.
All right.
Word. Hell yeah, brother. And again, like I mentioned, follow Nick and I on social medias down at the bottom. Subscribe to the channel or follow us on Twitch. Either one is more than helping out what we got going on over here. Like our videos, leave a comment after the fact. Yes, Justin Cole in the chat. SmackDown with Pat McAfee.
Yes.
And Adam Cole. Yeah, we're going literally right into SmackDown. So again, thank you so much to everybody that tuned in. Everybody's watching after the fact, before the fact. I don't know how you can do that. But for Jacob Pickett. He is here again. He will be back again for the Trash Bag Wrestler Nick Mulbach. My name is Chris Trash Bag Anthony Lopez. And it is a Wop Boy summer. But we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
And that's the bottom line. 'Cause